Given the money invested in Marvel's tentpole franchise, there is a level of interest in the production process for all of the movies that should be considered pretty unprecedented. It's now gotten to the point that secrets and spoilers are kept under such tight security that only a careless cast member who just doesn't give a damn can really spoil anything now. Either that, or LEGO will go ahead and do it anyway. Always, always LEGO. Sure, it's frustrating not knowing things, but to a certain extent, it's better not to know. Likewise, we should try and wait until after these movies are released before we start looking into what could have been. Even the most packed ensembles in the MCU at one point had other hero and villain faces involved. So, this is Ewan from What Culture speaking, and here are 10 major characters cut from MCU movies, and why. Number 10, Captain Marvel. Avengers Age of Ultron. Carol Danvers might have been debuted in the MCU in 2019 after a brief tease in Infinity War's post-credits scene, but Captain Marvel almost turned up a lot sooner. Joss Whedon apparently wanted to add the character to the mix for Avengers Age of Ultron when he was putting the script together. He even went as far as shooting some test footage, with Kevin Feige confirming that the director had included FX plates of Captain Marvel flying at the end of the movie in the scene showing Captain America and Black Widow putting together the new Avengers team. Why she was cut. The plan was to simply cast her at a later stage when Whedon included the shots of her, but Kevin Feige later revealed why she was dropped. Quote, "It would have done that character a disservice. To meet her fully formed in a costume and part of the Avengers already when 99% of the audience would go, huh? Who is that? It's just not the way we've done it before." Number 9, Hawkeye. Captain America the Winter Soldier. The original plan. Oh, Hawkeye, my poor, sweet, misunderstood SHIELD agent. I still love you. Oh, what's that? We're still recording? Whatever your take on the character, it's fair to say that Jeremy Renner really hasn't been used enough in the MCU. And while his late-stage evolution into the more badass Ronin is a positive step, he hasn't received the attention befitting his status in the comics. Even more annoyingly, he could have appeared in one of the best, scratch that, my favourite MCU film too. According to screenwriters Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, Hawkeye was originally supposed to appear briefly in The Winter Soldier. The plan was to have him chase Cap when he escaped S.H.I.E.L.D., catching him but ultimately letting him free. Sounds like the kind of thing such a great man, trademark, would do. Why he was cut. As McFeely and Marcus told Cinema Blend, the reason they cut him was that there was already too many supporting characters and they didn't want to do him a disservice with nothing real to do. Quote, "We knew we wanted Falcon there, we knew we wanted Black Widow. You're introducing Winter Soldier. Fury's got a bigger part in this one. It just started to seem like he was going to get a kind of a crappy part. If we were going to use him, we really wanted to use him well." According to the writers, he was just off on a mission somewhere in the world, leaving the only Hawk rep on the second Captain America film with an arrow necklace worn by Natasha. Damn right, I ship it. Number 8, Wonder Man. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the original plan. He might not be a name on mainstream MCU fans' lips, but Simon Williams, aka Wonder Man, was supposed to appear in James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. He was to be played by Nathan Fillion, and would have been a famous actor as well as a superhero. Gunn wanted to include Fillion, but apparently couldn't find the right role, so he came up with the idea to show in posters advertising his film festival, which would have shown films including a Steve Jobs-like biopic on Tony Stark. Why was he cut? Well, apparently the Easter egg posters were just too distracting and slowed down the flow of the film way too much, so they were lost in the edit. Number 7, Captain America. Ant-Man and the Wasp, the original plan. After the excellent Lewis flashback scenes from the first Ant-Man, it was inevitable we'd get more in the sequel, and while the one in there is great, Peyton Reed has revealed, via the Radio Times, that he originally wanted Captain America to appear in it too. Lewis would have recapped the airport battle scene from Civil War, and that version does sound amazing, to be honest. Quote, "Early on, we had a version where we were going to do a quick version of the tarmac fight from Civil War, with some ridiculous thing where, you know, Captain America has Ant-Man as a baseball and throws him. Because the whole thing is Lewis's version of events, right? We came up with all sorts of ridiculous visuals. Sadly, it wasn't to be, and the Cap scene never saw the light of day. Lost in time, like tears in the rain." So, why was he cut? There were two reasons for the cut. First, Reed says there were already way too many Civil War references, and second, the addition of Cap would have compromised Ant-Man and the Wasp being a true standalone as it was always intended. Quote, "We knew that we wanted to continue the story of these characters and then introduce our own characters that were really far more relevant to the story that we were telling." Number 6, Howard the Duck. Avengers Infinity War. The original plan? Say what you want about all of the achievements the MCU has made over the years, but very little comes close to their finest achievement. No, that's not the Oscars won for Black Panther, or the money. It's the fact they finally reinvented Howard the Duck, a character so maligned thanks to George Lucas's 1980s movie vision that he was sent permanently to the scrap heap. Well, not quite permanently, because he's now back as a supporting character in the Guardians films, and he almost got a chance to appear in Avengers Infinity War also. But still, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone keen on the idea of resurrecting the anthropomorphic duck, who is also, coincidentally, a top shagger. Anthony Russo confirmed to fandom that he was in one of the first drafts of Infinity War's script. Quote, "We were going to cameo with Ken Jeong, with Howard the Duck. It was Quill trying to track down some information from Howard on some outlier planet and interrupting him during a poker game." Why was he cut? Well, Russo says that despite how much he loved the scene in question, it just ended up being narrative flab and was cut. Quote, "That was a much beloved scene by us, but it just didn't end up fitting at all." He does, however, say that he'd like to make a Howard film, so it's not all bad. He might have been joking, but a man's word on the internet is his bond that can never be broken. Never be broken. Number 5, The Abomination. Avengers Age of Ultron. The original plan? Just after Iron Man came out, Marvel Studios also worked with Valhalla and Universal to make The Incredible Hulk, which people seem to wrongly think doesn't count in the MCU. There could have been an earlier revival of a character from that movie though, as Tim Roth revealed to Crave online that he was almost in Avengers Age of Ultron. Yes, long ago, Marvel was kicking around the idea of Abomination in the second Avengers movie, but the big bad position was filled by Ultron instead. Mr. Orange just can't catch a break. Why he was cut? Rumour has it that the Abomination was due to be a secondary villain, but with Ultron, the twins, and Andy Serkis's Ulysses Klaue, it was already way too busy, so he was written out. Possibly to return again in the future, we don't know. Number 4, The Wasp. Captain America Civil War. The original plan? Despite only appearing in Ant-Man and the direct sequel so far, Evangeline Lilly should have had a couple of more appearances under her belt, if original plans had come to fruition. She was initially considered in an early draft of a script for Joss Whedon's The Avengers, and would have replaced Black Widow on the team, owing to the fact she was a founding member in the comics. She was also set to appear in Captain America Civil War, as Lilly herself has revealed. Quote, "There was actually talk of me being in Captain America Civil War, and I was a little bit worried about that because she would have been introduced in a story that has nothing to do with Hope or her first taking on the mantle of the Wasp." Why she was cut. Eventually, echoing Lilly's own concerns on the matter, and those of Peyton Reed, who didn't want the Wasp genesis to be rushed, Marvel dropped her as they wanted to give her an origin movie instead. In the case of the Avengers, Whedon has said that he just couldn't make it work. Number 3, Nova. Guardians of the Galaxy. The original plan? For almost as long as there have been Guardians of the Galaxy movies, there have also been talk of Nova eventually appearing. We have, after all, seen the Nova Corps and Xandar in one of the movies, and there was actually a plan for Nova Prime to reappear in Guardians Volume 2, and there's no more famous son of both than Nova. The closest we got to him appearing was in the first Guardians, which Kevin Feige says initially included him as a character. Why was he cut? Well, Feige was pretty clear that the decision was made to focus more on Peter Quill's story, and Nova felt more like a distraction. If the rumours are correct, we may yet see Nova in his own movie and in the near future, in which case, it's time to Richard ride the hype train to Nova Town. Get it? Because he's called Richard Rider? I'm here all day, folks. Number 2, a big snake. Avengers Infinity War. The original plan? In the wake of Infinity War's release, we all found out that the Russos were remarkably economical when it came to the production process, which is why there are so few deleted scenes. There were, however, some different plans earlier in the filmmaking process. For instance, there was some thought of not having the snap in the film at all and opening Endgame with it instead. And, on top of that, a whole other race of creatures was set to debut at 1.2. According to writers Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, in an interview with ET Online, they tried to get around writer's block by introducing a pair of giant snakes. Quote, "We were sort of running on empty and we were like, snake? Big snake? Let's try big snake." And then everyone went insane. That sounds like a good answer to all questions. I mean, really. It would have also made that joke in Ragnarok even funnier, I guess. They've also entertained the idea of using Adam Warlock, given his importance in the comics, but it made no sense in the context of the film. Why it was cut? The snakes were designed to add even more threat to Thor and Rocket's and Groot's mission to forge Stormbreaker. But as with all products of writer's block-inspired silliness, they were deemed too much and left on the floor of the planning room. Number 1. Captain America, the Incredible Hulk. The original plan? It sounds a little strange now, but Captain America might have once debuted in the MCU earlier than his own movie. According to Slash Film, there was an alternate opening to Louis Leterrier's The Incredible Hulk, which was even shown partly in some trailers, which featured Bruce Banner heading to the Arctic to try and kill himself. As we know from Mark Ruffalo's Banner, when he tried to shoot himself, Hulk simply spat the bullet out. We would originally have seen that in the opening, as Ed Norton's Banner hulks out and smashes a chunk of ice in anger. Lo and behold, that would have revealed the frozen body of Captain America. Why it was cut? Ultimately, Leterrier decided against including the scene because it was just too adult. Quote, "The result was a very dark and strong scene, which Marvel, me, and everyone else considered to be too hard for young audiences to take, and so we cut it." Having said that, when Bruce arrives at his destination, he meets up with Captain America. Apart from that though, there's also the added fact that this kind of link would have been very contrived. Much better to leave Cap in the ice until 2011 with the first Avenger.